Come on in, girl. Hi. Grab a seat. It's just a small group, and we got somebody joining virtually tonight. So yeah, keep it real intimate. Cool. Yeah, I was just like telling the other ladies here that I was talking to my clinicians, and we had a lot of people that were really interested in like how do you make friends as an adult, you know. It seems to be like during the pandemic and everything that people either like went way too virtual with everything, and then now they become like socially awkward, you know, when we're like in person, or they just kind of like all of a sudden don't have the interest in making friends, you know, or anything like that. So really, like tonight's workshop is more on like the friendship aspect of things. But before you kind of like dive in, is there anything from you guys in particular that you like want to make sure we kind of touch on or discuss tonight? Okay. Yeah, we can definitely like time for questions and stuff at the end for sure. I pulled up these funny memes of let me see if I can show you. Yeah, there we go. That's good. Okay. So you know, always funny to see the little, you know, what the internet says. So what it's like as making friends as an adult. You know, this one says when you see people online who like the same stuff as you, but you don't know how to initiate the friendship. Just like, you look so cool. Welcome, Emily. Then you see this one, me trying to convince my friends that we should buy a large plot of land and start a community. I feel like we're all there. We're all like, let's just move out to the country and, you know, do what we want to do. Then these were pretty funny too. When you and your childhood bestie took different paths in life, but you still have a strong bond with them, ready for you, night. I just love that. This is so accurate. So accurate. Making friends in your 30s. Isn't it nice to think the same things? And then the last one I feel like was kind of the epitome. How do we make friends as an adult? Oh, we have so much in common. We should hang out sometime. And then you're like both checking your schedules, and it's like, nope, nah, I can't. Nope, that doesn't work, right? So hopefully, you know, through kind of discussion tonight, we'll be able to maybe kind of break down some of the barriers that kind of come with navigating friendships as an adult, and just kind of open some conversation for us to be able to like really dive in and say, okay, like, what does it take to foster these friendships? Keep on the next one. What's the scroll situation? So I don't know why I thought of this, but I was like, what do we want? We want connection. When do we want it? Now. Because I feel like we're all craving that. We're craving connection, and at our core, we crave to be known. Right? Like I can tell you guys how many clients I have that come in, and like so many of their issues stem around not being known, but then also when they are known, like they reflect how good it feels to be known, right? And so I think also in our, you know, instant gratification world, we've created so much of this, like again, like the peeking through the, you know, blinds on in the internet and being like, oh my gosh, you're so cool, but I don't know how to talk to you, right? It's like we want that connection, we want the like, we want the ability to be known, but we're not really willing to put in the work all the time. And friendships take time, right? Like they hard work. Like I just want you guys to think back to when you were younger, right? Pre-cell phones, when we had landlines. Okay, everybody used their landline to call up, you know, Sally that lived in the cul-de-sac a few streets away, right? And you'd ask Sally to hang out, like, let's go on a bike ride, okay, or whatever it is, right? And then you have to like wait on your friends, like get over to your house and go on your bike ride. And then, you know, you might see Sally at school, but you don't really like talk to Sally every day, unless you are like best friends already. But as you're like building up that friendship, you're just kind of like taking it slow and you're letting things go. And there's like this room and grace and space to be like, oh, Sally's at school, no biggie, right? But I think with our like instant gratification world, we've gotten into these like mindsets where we start internalizing every like lack of response, every missed call, every like lack of likes on photos, right? We like internalize that as, oh my gosh, they must hate me. They don't want to be my friend, right? And it's like, no, we're all just like really busy individuals and have a lot on our plates, right? So it's just important to remember like that friendships take time, right? So that's like kind of number one. So why do we need friendships as an adult, right? I think it can be really easy too for us to like dive into our careers or dive into our families or dive into whatever and kind of just get busy and we forget like the importance of friendships. So I went on just like WebMD, Mayo Clinic, just like have some resources for you guys, but we can all I think agree that like these are some pretty beneficial reasons for friendships. So just number one, it boosts happiness and reduces stress. Caveat, if you're in a healthy friendship. Now you have a toxic friendship, may not reduce the stress levels in your life. But it can also provide opportunity for learning new things and growth. So like you ask your friend like, hey, let's go to a pottery class together, or hey, let's go to take yoga, or even just as you hear them talk about their lives, right? You get the opportunity to like reflect on what they're saying and kind of internalize and learn about yourself sometimes just in what other people are sharing, right? I put down here, it can determine the course of your life. And I know that sounds dramatic, but like, it really can. Like, think how many, I mean, I'm sure we probably all know or have friends in our lives that like maybe they took the wrong path, if you will, you know, maybe got really sucked into some things they shouldn't have got sucked into, or maybe you got sucked into it with them, right? So like, you know, they say that you are the average of the 5 closest people to you, right? And I was actually learning in my school of natural health, and we were talking, it was like a weight loss module, and they were actually saying that your friends actually have a lot more to do with your weight loss journey than just what you eat or how often you exercise even, right? And it's all because of like the habits that our friends do or engage in, right? So having friendships also provides support during those difficult seasons in life. So when you are going through something tough, like it's so important for us to have someone that we can call, and just chat or process with, right? Sometimes it can provide a sense of purpose. Like maybe you have a friend that you just really valuing, like pouring into them, or you know, you're a helper type of person, and so you get to go help them, or maybe you and your friend, like I have this one friend, she's like such a business-minded person that she and I like really, you know, kind of go in cahoots with like business ideas and like trying to help each other build our businesses and different things like that. So it's just really fun to have somebody you can kind of bounce those things off of. And then last, to help us reflect and just again process major life events. I'm sure there's like countless other reasons to have friends. Maybe for you guys, like what are some of the reasons that you like value your friendships that you do have, or what kind of, I guess, positive values it brings to your life?
Well, just knowing that you're there. Right. And I have a group of friends I've known for 50 years. There's like 7 of us. And, you know, we're kind of spread out now, so we really don't get together a lot. You know, we still, you know, when we do, it's like we've never been apart.
Right.
And I moved here like 3 years ago without knowing anybody. So I kind of had to make some friends, and it took me a while to get going because I'm kind of introverted and shy. I mean, I can talk to people, but it's like, you know, I joined that meetup app, and I would sign up to do all these things, and then it would come to the day I'm like, I'm going. I just, you know, I just walking into someplace, a whole bunch of people I don't know, you know, intimidates me. But I finally did, and I went, and I made 2 really good friends that day.
That's awesome.
That are still really good friends. So, so I don't know. I think, but you know, with my friends I've had for 50 years, I mean, we've gone through a lot. You know, I mean, one I've known since I was 5.
Wow.
And the others I met like in middle school, high school, and you know, we've all gone through a lot of stuff. And grew up together, so it's nice because they know your history.
Right. It's that deep known piece. Right? And like you said earlier, the idea of just like knowing that there's somebody there to support you. Like I have had clients who I've worked with who when they came in, they just had no support, right? And so as soon as they come in to work with somebody that they know is going to be there, all of a sudden things change. Even I might not have done anything, right? Like, but they just know that I'm there. And so sometimes just knowing that you have friends that are there changes everything. Because I can tell you, I've talked to people who truly feel like they have no one, and they are in a much different place, right? So yeah, you just like the knowing that someone's there, even if you don't call them all the time. Yeah. What about you guys? What brings value for y'all?
Probably support for me, have the same place, just do what I need to do.
Yeah.
Let my guard down a little bit.
Yeah.
I've learned recently, I guess, in the last years or two, that relationships can fuel me, like activate me. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like with business, and I guess I really recognized it with business. But then also just with ministry, it's the relationships that keep me going and
Right.
like showing up. And in my family too. So, I guess.
Like inspiration and motivation.
Yeah, and people that I can have at this stage.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so let's talk about some of the barriers that get in the way of us forming these friendships, right? So I wrote just a few up here. I really hate the color choice that this projector is doing for this because it looks so different on my computer. Here we are. So barriers that get in the way of friendships. Fear of rejection. I think is like one of the biggest ones. And I hear this all the time. But you know what I think is so funny about fear of rejection? We're all afraid of it. So we're like all in the same boat. We're all recognizing that we don't want to be rejected.
Yeah.
So even if you think about yourself, you know, welcoming in a new person or a new friend, it's like, how often have you ever actively been like, no, I'm not gonna like talk to you, you know what I mean? And so if you don't do that, it's like how many other people in your life are really doing that to you, right? There's also lack of trust.
It's just that thing.
Maybe. I'm also gonna make sure it's not like recording or like making, oh, I think I have to admit her. That's what's happening. Sorry, Emily. I didn't realize I had to admit you to the thing. I kept reading deep going in and out, but I know I have to admit. So yeah, so lack of trust is another big one. Because I'm sure we've all had experiences where we offered a part of ourselves to someone and maybe they did do us dirty in some way, right? So that's something really big to just kind of think about is like, where is your trust meter, I guess, when it comes to like entering into friendships. But I also think it's really important to recognize that we don't have to trust people completely with everything about us, right? Like that's a slow build kind of thing, but I think too often we get a little black and white with our thinking of it, and it's kind of like I either trust you or I don't. Whereas friendships, you kind of like offer little bits at a time and let people kind of test the waters a little bit before you can really know fully. Now, some people, yes, you might just have like a feeling and you might just say, I 100% trust you, that's great. But some people, maybe you just don't know them that well, and so you have to kind of build it up, right? Another big one is lack of time. Like that's, I mean, like that last meeting, right, is like classic of, yeah, we can schedule. I was just talking with our admin Madison, and she's like, yeah, it is so hard. She's like, I wish I could have come to this workshop tonight because it's so hard to make friends. And she says the ones that are doing hang out with us like book a month and a half out, you know, to like be able to hang out with each other. And then I think the last one is the biggest one to me, because I know I experienced this in my own perception of friends, is just a lack of authenticity, right? So for me, I know that, like you said, you're introverted, right? I'm like, I don't care if you're introverted, but like just communicate to me about your being introverted, right? And like that's fine, right? But if you're not communicating that, then it creates maybe a lack of trust, right? And so then I'm like, well, maybe she doesn't like me. Maybe she doesn't want to hang out with me, right?
Yeah, I had somebody in college, it was some kind of psychology class. and I guess they had to like give you an idea of what they thought of you. And they said something about me, like they thought I was stuck up or something like that. And I'm like the least stuck up person.
Yeah.
And I was so upset, because I thought that's just part of my introverted shyness. And I wasn't, but they didn't know me, that's like their first impression. And I'm like,
Right.
oh my God, I hate so often. Somebody thinks I'm stuck up. But anyway.
Right, well, and then that's the other piece of it, is that like, we have to authentically recognize within ourselves that other people are gonna have perceptions of us, right? And we can't control that. But we can control, if we recognize that that person is somebody that we value and want to be friends with, we can recognize like, okay, I need to maybe go out of my way to like explain the way I operate, so that they get it, right? That kind of thing. But I just think lack of authenticity overall, it's interesting, because I think sometimes the like lack of authenticity almost can be what attracts people to each other at first, right? Because it's like this facade that we see on social media or whatever, like, oh, cool, like, it's fun. And then like we get into it and we realize like that wasn't authentic, and then there is this part of them that's like, oh, it's like different than what I pictured you guys, right? So we have to be able to be more and more authentic in our friendships if we want them to come around, stick, last, all that kind of good stuff. Are there other barriers that you guys can think of that you feel like really prohibit, building friendships?
These are all really good.
I feel like they were kind of like broad enough to like encompass a lot of things, Anymore on that. Right, so how do we begin creating these friendships? What is y'all's, well, I guess we'll kind of get into it. This is just, there's something really cute. So we'll kind of go through some like categories of how to begin creating these friendships. And I guess because this is kind of one of those things for me that is the foundation of everything, whether it's creating friendships, starting a business, I don't know, joining some sort of adventure challenge, whatever it is that you want to do. Like step number one is you have to know yourself, right? And you have to know your values. You have to know what works for you, what doesn't work for you. You have to understand your own goals, know your limitations and capacities, right? Because if you don't know yourself, what happens when we start to interact with people and maybe try to cultivate these friendships? What can happen when we like don't enter in with like an awareness of who we are?
Maybe insecurity.
Yeah, and maybe insecurity could like flare out, right? Yeah. What else? People pleasing for sure.
And you make friends that really aren't your kind of people.
Yes. Yes. I think that is like the biggest one, is like you end up, if you don't know your values and you don't know your limitations, your capacities, where you're at in life, yeah, you end up making friends with people that really aren't your people, right? And that's like, it's okay. It's okay to like befriend someone without them being your people, right? It's okay to like be kind, civil, polite, all the things. We don't have to be your people. But I will say, like, the more we don't learn ourselves, the more we don't honor our values, the more we don't listen to our limitations and capacities, again, we get into those relationships and friendships with people that aren't our people, and then we get frustrated, right? And then we get like mad, and then we start internalizing things like, why me? This always happens to me in my friendships, right? It's like, well, yeah, maybe it does because you're not honoring your values. You're not honoring your limitations and your capacities. You're not understanding your goals and where you're headed, right? So yeah, it's always gonna like create some friction, right? Because if you're trying to enter into, I don't know, I'm just trying to think like a group of people that I'm gonna put this in like a sports category. So like that's a safe bet. It's to be, like if your goal is to be like a marathon runner, but you somehow get into a group of like hip hop dancers, right? Well, then you start to get frustrated because it's like, well, I can never see my friends because they're all at dance class, learning their choreographed dances, and you're in the trail trying to run 26 miles, and then you're isolated and alone. but then you like internalize those things by yourself. And it's like, no. Let's just like listen to our capacities, listen to our goals, where we're headed, and then we'll kind of navigate that, right? The way I kind of described it, not necessarily about friendships, but I feel like what were we talking about? Oh, relationships, like romantic relationships, but it's just like, you can think of it like going on Airbnb and you have all these filters, right? You're trying to find this vacation house for you and your friends, right? You put all the filters on. You need to know how many rooms it's got. You need to know, like, does it have a pool or a hot tub? Like, what's the price range? What's the location, right? And then from there, you get this list of like places that are perfect for you, right? And then you get to go in and choose your place. That becomes your bestie place, right? And it's the same kind of thing with friends. It's like, I think sometimes we get a little, like we think it's maybe higher now or something to have like a filtration system for our friendships and our relationships, but really we need it. It's just standards, right? And it's, again, knowing your capacities, not to say that you can't look outside that map region, right, on Airbnb and find another random house. It might be a little bit more expensive. It might have a little less of your amenities, but you might make it work, right? It's the same kind of thing with our friends, but we have to know what we're looking for in order to get there. But it starts with knowing yourself, right? Cultivating rhythms, I think, is another really important one. Again, our society is a little bit of like a transient society, and we do a little bit of like here, there, and everywhere in between. And so it can be really difficult to cultivate rhythms, but when we show up to the same yoga class each week, when we show up, to the same Bible study or same support group or same, book club or whatever, your senior fit classes, like those are great places to like show up to regularly, because then you start to see, again, it's like a filtration system. You start to see people that are fitting within your way of life, right? Rather than you like, being like, oh, we show up to this random class here and a random class there. Now, if you already have like a group of friends and y'all want to do that, that's wonderful. Like if you want to try new things, and, whatever, that's great. But in order to like start cultivating friendships, sometimes you have to cultivate rhythms with those friends. I had a friend that when she lived here before she moved to Japan, we would get tacos and margaritas every Thursday, every single Thursday after yoga. Unless there's like some sort of, big event or like something like that came up. But that was like our regular, and we established that, and we would just do it because our life worked in that way, right? Sometimes it just takes having a Saturday morning coffee friend or, a walking buddy or whatever, that looks like for you. But you gotta cultivate routines and rhythms in order to make it stick. This next one's a big one. Communicating effectively, right? So again, it starts with knowing yourself, right? When you know yourself, you can start to express desires within your friendships, right? You can start to say, I would love to be more active, in my friendships. Like I've got lots of friends who we like recognize, like, man, all we do when we hang out is we want to, sit around and drink wine, right? It's like that's great, but also we want to be active. We want to go walking. We want to like do fitness classes together, right? So you can start to express your desires. You can also express your hurts, and you have to express your hurts, right? Because again, otherwise it's just sitting beneath the surface, and then it becomes this like friction within your spirit, right? It becomes like a lack of peace almost. Being vulnerable. It's like the hardest thing for our society to do. There's so much freedom in being vulnerable. There's so much freedom in it. Now, when you guys think of the word vulnerable, what do you think of?
Open.
Open, okay.
Maybe sharing something that you wouldn't want to share it unless you trust the person. So there's some like risk there.
Sure, a little bit of risk, yeah.
Like I think of Bible study, I like sharing with the group like that I'm leading something that I wouldn't just share with anyone maybe, but like a hard time I went through, what God did, like in that I feel like a little bit of vulnerability.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, think of like risks and scary and Like,
Open.
yeah, open. But vulnerability, it's a lot more like simple, I feel like, than we make it out to be, because we often think that when we share some like part of ourselves that we're struggling with, we automatically like put all the power into other people's support with what they do with it, right? Rather than recognizing like that vulnerability actually gives you so much power and strength within any friendship, because that just it keeps you aware again of your values, you aware of what you need, what you desire. And it also just allows people like that, being vulnerable is what allows people to trust you. I'll be the first to admit, if I sense any level of hiddenness within someone that I'm like talking with, I'm the first to say, disconnect. I do not need to be close to you, because if you ain't gonna be open with me, we do not need to be friends. You know, like, and that's a little bit of a dumb blow on my part. But that's the reality of there's a lot of people out there like that, right? And so it's like if we always keep now, I'm not saying go out into the world and just share all of your dirty laundry with everyone, like, hey, your friend, like tacos, like, let me just tell you all the worst things I've ever done in my life. Like, no, we don't want to do that. We want to like evaluate what is the purpose of what I'm sharing with this person. Is it to establish connection? And maybe even if you notice, like, I don't know if this is like a helpful meter, but when you notice yourself talking to someone, if you notice that you're trying to like refrain from saying things, but it's not because you mistrust the person, but because it's self-preservation, that might be a good opportunity to practice sharing, right? Like if you know that there's a person that you're talking to that you like, I do trust this person. Like, I know that they've never shared anybody's secret. I know that they like don't talk bad about people. I know they're here to support me. But if you notice there's like a inkling within you where you like want to share something, or you're in the middle of sharing something, but you're consciously like leaving out details or leaving out, whatever, but it's really self-preservation, that might be an opportunity to like open up, and just practice like laying it out on the table. Now with vulnerability, obviously, like you said, comes risk, but that's the risk with which we now get more information to filter our friendships with, right? So it's like when we become vulnerable, if we see that someone doesn't, keep that secret that we share, or if we see that someone is somehow abusing the information that we shared, that becomes knowledge for us now. It's not the end of the world, right? Like, it is not the end of the world for somebody to know your dirty laundry, right? We think it is, but it is not. But that becomes information for us to now look at that friendship and go, okay, like that's a friend that I'm not going to trust with that type of information, and that's okay, right? Like, it doesn't have to be so black or white, right? And then the last little bit of communicating effectively, I would just think it's like making it factual, not emotional. So like, I'm just thinking of, when we're texting our friends, maybe they did something that hurt us. Sometimes we try to like name call or like blow up people's spot, or I don't know, we try to like make them feel guilty for how they hurt us. And it's like in reality, we just get to say like, hey, like, just kind of hurt my feelings that you didn't call me last time. I thought we were gonna chat and it's fine, right? So that's like an objective way of describing what happens. Like, hey, last week I thought we were gonna talk on the phone and we didn't. And that's okay, but it hurt my feelings, right? So it's like, yeah, it's still emotional in the sense that you're saying it hurt my feelings, but you're not like throwing emotional like hype language around it. Does that make sense? So yeah, any questions about like the communicating effectively piece?
But sometimes that's hard to do.
Making it factual. Yeah, I know that.
Putting all that emotion into it.
Yeah, I like to think of it like almost like you're describing a movie scene to someone. So if you can learn how to objectively describe how you got to the feeling that you're feeling, it's like you want to make it as if you're describing a movie scene so that someone else, if they were just listening to the movie scene you're describing, could see it play out, right? But if we just throw a bunch of emotional hype words out there, we're missing a lot of context clues, right? Of like what just happened in that situation. So if you can almost imagine it like you're trying to describe this movie scene that's unfolding before you, that's going to help people really get a good picture of what just happened and how did you get to where you are, right?
It's interesting to think about all this in a marriage context, like I wasn't at first, but then going through it, I'm like, a
Right.
lot of times I skip expressing my desires, and then the emotional happens.
Yeah.
I'm like skipping part of my part.
Exactly, yeah, that's a very important, tidbit of information, because when we forget to express these things, that's when it becomes like more of that emotional meltdown, right? Or that's when we, realize like, oh, I don't wanna be vulnerable, because we think that someone hurt our feelings, when in reality, we just didn't really express what we need or what we
Right.
want, right? It's like they had no clue, how they could help us.
Yeah.
Okay, showing up for your friendships, right? Like, again, we can't expect to build friendships and have them grow if we don't show up. And then we also can't really be mad if that friend that we thought we wanted to be our friend, like, starts choosing other people. Like, if you're, again, everybody's got their own filtration system, whether they want to acknowledge it or not, whether it's conscious or not. We're doing it all the time. And so if you want a friendship to stick, you gotta be willing. That's the vulnerable piece, right? Sometimes it's just showing up to things, right? So you've gotta be willing to just show up. Whether it's showing up for them when they're down and out, showing up because they want to go do some activity that maybe you're not really into, but right. But then you also get to still circle back and express that desire, like, hey, we went to the live music show last week with you. This week, can we go on a walk instead? Whatever that looks like. But showing up is crucial for cultivating those friendships. Let go of what doesn't work. This is a hard one for people, I think. I think everything's just work all the time. It's not. It's just not, and that's okay, right? I always say that there's like reasons and seasons for people in your life sometimes, right? Sometimes there's maybe like a really important reason that person is around at a certain season of your life, right? Maybe they're there to teach you something or just to be a support in that moment. And then maybe there's certain people who are your friends for seasons, where maybe this is a friend that you have known since you're 5 and you've like grown all the way up, and that's like the season of lifelong friendship, right? Or maybe it's a season of college and you're friends with these people just because you went to college together, or a season of like just moved to town and we all moved to town people, I don't know, it could be a lot of things. You guys all kind of moved to town recently, actually.
Yeah.
Because when did you move here?
2 years ago.
2 years, 3, 1. Less than a year, yeah. 2 more, love it. Or 2, 3 more. But yeah, sometimes we just have to learn how to let go of those things that aren't working. The more we hang on to the things that aren't working when they're not working, the more often we're missing opportunity to meet someone new, to like free up our calendar, right? To free up our mind and our heart. Like, how often do we hang on to these friendships sometimes that are just like, ugh. Like, we want them so badly to work out, but sometimes we just have to like step back a little bit. Like, I have a prime example. I have a friend who I've been friends with since I was in the 9th grade, right? Like, long-term friendship. But like, as we've gotten older, she's just kind of, I don't know if it's like that she was afraid of being vulnerable, so there's like that part of me that wants to disconnect from you if you're not willing to be vulnerable, kind of thing. I tried so hard, it took up so much space in my mind, like thinking like, why is this friendship not working? Like, what is going on? Why would she, invite me to hang out when she's in town, but she invites this other person, all these different things, right? I just had to realize, like, let me just pull away. Not like pull away, cancel her out, right? Or text her and be like, we're not friends anymore, but to just pull away in the sense that recognizing that I don't have to put forth all of that effort and energy into something that's not working, right? And actually something that's really interesting that has happened is that now it's almost like she has circled back around to like messaging me when she's in town and like different things like that. And so sometimes when we let go, it allows room for that person to breathe, or allows you to breathe enough to then kind of come back and it works, right? So we have to be willing to let go too. So some ideas of how to meet some friends, right? You mentioned the Meetup app. Like, that's a really great app. If y'all haven't like looked at that or checked it out, it's what I don't know if I haven't been on it in a long time, but from what I understand still is that it's basically designed to give you like certain hobbies, right, or things that you're interested in. So it's like everything from pottery to bird watching to running club to book club to like, hey, let's just meet up and like kayak together this morning. Like it's a lot of different things. And so you could go on something like that. You could show up again at a support group for something, like especially if you're someone who maybe is really in depth about something and you want to meet other friends who are in similar life situations. Like maybe you need to go to a support group for people who come out of addiction space, or what, like, or you need a support group for people who recently lost their mom, or whatever it is, right? Like sometimes that's a great way to meet friends that have deep connections and can like understand where you're coming from. Fitness classes are great, churches, small groups, Bumble BFF, if you haven't tried that. So Bumble is like the dating app that, yeah. So there's like, I think it's still around, again, correct me if I'm wrong, because I could put these things that don't exist anymore. But Bumble BFF is, yeah, a way that you can go on there and you basically like swipe for friends. And you can swipe for like groups will be like, hey, we're all like, I'm gonna get together at Independence Distillery this, Friday night. Like you're down to meet up with these friends, like you go and you meet kind of like a networking event, I guess. That might be another place, networking events are great. And then like book clubs, they're all great little ideas and places. What are places that y'all have met friends that you're like, oh, this is kind of like a random nice friend.
Well, I met my friends that I have right now from Meetup, but then I've joined some book clubs. I'm in like 5. I'm a little crazy.
Love that.
But so I go to those, and I haven't really made friends from those, but I see the same people. It's just nice to go.
Yeah.
Those are my main, since I moved here. Yeah. I'm trying to. I love the friends I've made, but I want to spread out from. There's like three of them.
Right. Yeah.
And we have a lot of the time, but a lot of theirs is going out and drinking.
Right.
I don't mind drinking, I like to drink, but it's like everything they do is revolved around that. And I don't want to do that all the time.
Right.
So I'm trying to kind of like in the book clubs and put things to where, coffee, I love coffee shops. There was one meetup that she started like a coffee shop meetup thing. So I want to do things like that instead of always feeling like every time I'm with them, it has to be, at a bar or brewery or whatever.
Right.
I don't mind it. I like that. I like the atmosphere and all that. But I'm past going out and getting drunk. I'm 61 years old. And one of my friends, I love her, but she drinks a lot. And I feel like I'm back in college trying to take care of her. I'm like, oh, I'm responsible for somebody else like that when I'm 60 years old.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes like, even if you have that small group of friends that even if they're not really into all the things that maybe you're into, sometimes that's part of the vulnerable piece is like you being willing to maybe step into that friendship and text them and say, hey, do you guys want to go walking this morning? Or do you want to go, kayaking with me on Saturday? Like whatever the thing may be that you would rather do.
Yeah, I mean, one of them, she and I get together and we'll go shopping and we'll go out to, different things. But it's like when we're all together as a group, that's kind of like right. And the one that likes to drink, if it doesn't involve drinking, she doesn't, I've invited her to other things. She's like, oh, I don't think so. I'm like, it's good to get drink. I mean, I know what you're doing. It's silly.
And you're going to roll down the banner. That's tough. Any other ways that y'all like met people that have worked for you? How do you met some people? How in some ways you met people? Like you're always doing something.
Really?
It seems like it. That's I don't
I've
know.
not been at 8:30 for 3 weeks now.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. No, I think this is interesting because I have lived in the same place since I was a little girl. And so any new friends that come into my life, I have welcomed them into our community because I grew up in a really, really small town. And so I've never had to actively, I still have to put time and effort because it does take effort and I don't think people realize that. You have to put in the time to actually make friendships. But it's easy to do that, because it's all in walking distance,
Right.
it's all like, and so it's just a little bit easier, and here it's been very, very challenging. It's been very overwhelming at times.
Yeah.
So I'm like, but no, I don't really have, I maybe have two friends here, who I would call friends, that I would text, I'll say.
Yeah.
And that's a start.
Right.
Better than none.
I will say this, something for myself, now that you just said that, it kind of reminded me of like college. So like, I remember in college, I had like pockets of friends, right? I had like my, ministry friends, I had my, intramural friends, I had my friends from high school that went to college with me friends, and I had like, and it was great, but I always felt alone, honestly, because everybody in those circles were BFFs within those circles, whereas I was like kind of BFFs with like one person like in each circle, so I would often feel like left out. But something for me was, I think I had to like break down this mindset for myself that people like weren't my friend. I had to like really do some inner work around just assuming that people were my friends and like sending out like a mass text message to, these 15 people that I know, but maybe we don't hang out often, right? And I would just be like, hey, I'm hosting a barbecue at my house, y'all can come. Whoever wants to, right? But it took me like doing that before I started to like really recognize like, okay, you know what, like some of these people are my friends. I just, maybe haven't reached out to them enough, or because you start to talk to them and then you realize like, oh, they were kind of in the same boat that I was in. They realized that they didn't have any friends, and they just assumed that I had a lot of friends. Like I just assumed that about you, you know what I mean? I'm like, I just assumed that, but that's what people do, is like we assume, right? We assume what people's situations are. And so if you're feeling like maybe you don't have friends, maybe part of it is kind of like, let's just assume that people are our friends, right? Like this, and reach out and go out in that way to cultivate a little deeper. I kind of think of it, I have this one friend, which is not ever. Not gonna say her name, but she's
live? Are we live?
Oh, it's not live, it's recorded, so maybe she'll never go back. But she, is someone who has like really bad RBF, resting bitch face, right? Like really bad RBF. Maybe kind of like your friend you said in your psych class assumed that you were like, what did you say? Stuck up, yeah. So maybe it's like something to do with like facial expressions, right? Who knows? But she's one of those people that if I was to go solely based off of that interaction, I would think she was mad at me. I would think we were not friends, right? So I had to go in with assumptions that I am friends with her and that things are okay, right? And as soon as I did that, it allowed her to open up and allowed her to like be vulnerable and connect on a deeper level, right? But sometimes we have to do that. Sometimes we kind of have to like psych ourselves out in a way, and like almost go. Like I put in here to stop assuming, but this is more meaning like stop assuming that people aren't our friends and maybe start assuming that they are, right? Like start assuming that people do like this. Start assuming that they do want to hang out. Start assuming that they're just busy and like I need to invite them to something I'm, whatever that looks like, right? But yeah, so like kind of going into like just enhancing connections with people. Something that I really love is just asking different questions of people that we meet other than like, hey, how are you? Because it's like a fine question, but it's just that.
Yeah.
It's fine, right?
Yeah.
Because we say, I'm fine, but it's fine, good, right? But like starting to ask better questions like, what brings you here? What are you looking forward to this week? Like, what's a new project you've been working on? What's something you've learned this week? I mean, it can be 100 different questions. I'll never forget the day a friend of mine, who I've been friends with for a long time, but we were in our kitchen and he was like, so look, what are you excited for this week? And I was just like, taken aback. I was like, wait, I have no idea. And then it also made me feel more connected to him because it made me feel like he cared in a very different way, right? So sometimes just even asking different kinds of questions of, hey, how are you, can allow people to see that you're open for business, if you will, right? Because hey, how are you is the like we're gonna just like brush this off, move along, right, kind of conversation, but to ask those different kind of questions lets people see that you're like open for conversation, you're open to learn about somebody, you're open to just talk, right? Now if you're not open to that, obviously don't ask those questions. No, that's right. Make it about the other person, not just yourself. I think too often we like slip into trying to make these friendships and then like incessantly talk about us, or we want them to ask us questions and we forget like to reciprocate. So like it's really important to ask those kind of reciprocal questions. Don't give up on the first try, right? Like again, friendships take time, they take like repetitiveness, they take the routines, the rhythms, they take, you know, doing it over and over again before we realize like, wow, this is a very much valued friendship that I would have missed if I be vulnerable and joy. And so I put that up there because yes, we talked about vulnerability. And I struggle with this, being joyful about things all the time because I'm a therapist and I'm cynic in a lot of ways and I have trust issues, right? But being vulnerable and joy is again kind of like a way to let people know that you're ready to hang out, you're ready to have fun, you're ready to like enjoy life together, right? But joy is vulnerable, actually. I don't know if you guys feel that, but I know, like some people, I don't know if y'all do Enneagram stuff or know anything about it. It's this personality thing. There's one that's a 7, which is like the enthusiast on the Enneagram wheel, right? And so some people have this like natural affinity for life and they just like want to do all the fun things all the time. So like joy's not really a problem for them, right? I don't feel like I used to be that way in high school, maybe. But as responsibilities pile on, as I own a business and run my household and like all these different things, it can feel like almost like joy's not allowed until I get all these other things done, right? Or until I like check all these, you know, anxiety boxes off. But allowing yourself to have fun is what allows people to gravitate towards that like positive light in you know? But if we sit with our RBF and we say, how you doing? Moving along, right? Like we don't allow ourselves to experience joy in that moment. Again, stop assuming what other people's situations are. Stop assuming that people hate you. Stop assuming that they just don't want to invite you. Because again, people forget. I can't tell you guys how many times I have like gone through, tried to maybe host a barbecue at my house or something. Okay, like, who am I inviting? I'll forget like my best friend in the world. I just like forget to put them in there. When I'm texting the team here at Bayball, like sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm forgetting a person here. And it's just tough to like, keep up with everybody, right? But we can't assume that they just don't want to be friends with us, right? We have to ask questions. If they, you know, if they're really putting off some negative, you know, energy or something like that, so ask questions, get to know where they're really at before we just make that assumption, right? And then the last one that I put was just cancel culture. So cancel culture is this whole phenomenon where it's like, well, if I don't like you anymore, like we can't be friends, I'm canceling you out. That means I'm never gonna like speak to you again. I'm gonna unfriend you off of all my social media. Like we've got to stop it. We've got to cancel culture because when we allow ourselves to in our mind be so quick and black and white, like, oh, like we're just not friends anymore. I guess I'll just never talk to them again, right? Again, we're missing out on opportunities for some of those reasons and seasons of support, of purpose, you know, of fun, you know, whatever that looks like. So we can't let the cancel culture get us down. So I'd love to hear from you guys, like any like just questions or thoughts or you know comments or experiences that you've had that you would love to share.
Well, when I first moved here 2 years ago, when I would go to the playground for the church, I think because I was new to the area, I had this mindset like everyone already has their things that they do and the events that they have.
Right.
So I felt like really shy to like try to be a part of their life.
Mm-hmm.
But then I guess at some point, I said hi, became friends with someone.
Yeah.
And then I started to realize then that, helped me to be braver.
Yeah.
But I realized so many people, when I say hi at the playground or church, those two just like stand out to me. They wanted to be friends and they wanted to talk and they wanted to know, like, I don't know, they, like, there was this like welcoming, that I don't know, I didn't even recognize for like the first year I was here.
Yeah.
And it is true, like when I shifted my mindset, it sort of changed the way I was making friends.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's just the way you interact with the room, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, this is like a weird example, I don't know if y'all can relate to it. But like when you are, let's say you're not married, you're dating, right? It's like everyone knows you're single. And everyone is like willing to talk to you, or like you're willing to talk to them, you know, like there's like this different way of interacting, right? But it's like as soon as you like commit, you're in a committed relationship, there's something about the way you interact with the world that people know, like she's off limits, right? And it's not because you necessarily come in shouting like, I'm single and available, or like I'm taken, but there's just a way that you present yourself, and a way that you interact with other people that people pick up on, right? So yeah, it's like if you can shift your mindset around making friends, and you know, again, I think it goes back really to like the idea of like selfishness. Not saying that you were selfish at all, but I'm just saying like us as humans, like when we have the lens so focused on ourselves, we forget. Again, other people are all in the same boat that we're in, right? We forget that like they have a million layers of their life going on, and you've got a million layers of your life going on, and like we forget that there's ways that we've got to make those layers happen, and we forget that like, oh, maybe somebody just had a hard day and that's why they have RBF today, you know, or maybe someone like just lost their job and that really sucks and they're not in the mood to talk to you, you know, like there's a lot of things going on beneath the surface that we'll never know if we keep assuming things, right? And so that's why it's like, you want to ask questions.
And, everyone does not take easily.
Yeah.
Because like what you just said, who knows? I had a friend with breast cancer and she had a wig. So like when she was at this grocery store, no one could tell.
Right, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So like I always try to remind myself not to be like easily offended because who knows what they're going through.
Right. Yeah, that's so real. Yeah, that's a hard one. It's like not
I think the older we get, we let that go a lot, because I used to worry about what people thought of me and be easily offended, and now it's like, I don't care if they don't like me, I don't get offended most of the time, you know, I just let that stuff go. It's like,
So maturity.
yeah, maybe.
Well, I mean, but yeah, that's it, right? It's like that ability again to be authentic and to let that stuff go, because you recognize, again, it becomes your natural filtration system. You start to recognize like, okay, that person's not meant for me, and they're gonna act that way, right? Yeah.
It goes a lot with like a dating or a marriage or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I'm dating a guy now that I've been with for a year, and I'm 61. I've never been married. I adopted kids from China as a single parent. So I raised them as a single mother, and I didn't really date until they were a little bit older. And so now that I'm with him, but he's totally, he's the first person, and I said to him, I said, I'm 61 years old, and you're the first man I've ever dated that I am totally myself with. Totally.
Yeah.
This is too much information, but we moved my daughter to Washington, D.C. She started grad school, and, we were gone 2 days, and I couldn't poop. Because it was, and I kept saying that to him, I said, and I thought, I never would say that, 'cause I don't know.
Yeah.
And that was a simple thing, but in my head, I'm like, my God, I'm really comfortable with this, because that would be, I always had to wall up, and I always had to be different, because I felt like I wasn't pretty enough, or I wasn't whatever with these other people.
Yeah.
And with him, it's just like, I am who I am, and he loves me for who I am, and no, it's, so I think you can be that way with friends too.
Yeah, 100%, exactly. And that's, that again, like your vulnerability and your ability to be honest and open about things like your bodily function. It's like, that allows other people that same safety, right? And like when we are creating like two people that have that same level of safety, like entering into those relationships, that's what makes them work. You know, like I always kind of think back to when I used to work at summer camps, right? So like I was a big summer camp girl. Like I worked at summer camps from 9th grade until like my junior year of college, right? And I just always loved camp people. Like I just was always like, camp people are my people, because like at camp you're dirty all day, your hair's a mess, you wear the same outfit for like 5 days in a row. You know, you like are doing silly activities with the kids, like playing, you know, just playing in the sun all day. You're vulnerable, it's joyful, it's like, and also you're connecting in such deep ways because you like live with these people for 10 weeks out of the summer, you know, you're sharing a room with 4 other girls, and it's like tiny spots in the room, like, you know, and so it just like allows you this opportunity to be like quickly vulnerable and quickly like get to the group, because you're like, well, we gotta live together for 10 weeks, you know, so like let's get to it, right? And I always wish that like all of life is like that. And it can be, like I do think it can be, because again, I think when we carry that persona or like that embody that mindset wherever we go, like it allows us to be camp people with everybody, you know? And then friendships can grow and blossom from that. If there's people again who don't like that you're a camp person, right? Or like they don't jack with that persona, great, like that's your filtration system, and you don't have to be friends with them. And that's okay. I think we think too often as adults that we do have to be friends with everyone, and then when we're not, or when one doesn't work out, that's again we like start to internalize that we're bad at making friends, or that we like just don't have any friends, or what have you. Like, what's about just like recognizing, okay, like I do have friends. I've got these 3 friends. I've got 2 friends, you know. And that's a confidence booster within yourself to recognize that I do have friends. I have made a couple of friends here. And that counts for something, right? You can't be dismissive of it.
There's a quote from the Good Shaman.
Yeah, not really, but I love it.
It's in the trailer. It's like, she's saying about her husband, you don't have to have everyone love you, you just need a few. And I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
And also, there's something special about like being fully known. I mean, different friendships can be different levels of
Sure.
fully known,
Sure.
but being real, authentic, and being known, and then still being loved.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what we're all striving for,
Like,
right?
yeah, you can love my Instagram, like
Right.
that's pretty, but like to be known and loved, that's a whole new level.
Right.
So
Yeah.
this is what we all want.
Yeah, it's exactly what we all want. We all want to be known and loved for who we are, despite, you know, what's going on around us, or despite if we have, you know, a plethora of resources or we don't, or, you know, if we're the most fun in the world or not, right? Like that's exactly what we all want. I can tell you how many clients, again, that's like part of their struggle when they're coming in, is that they want so badly to be known, but they're not willing to do any of the things that it takes to be known. Like we have to lay down our pride at some levels and allow ourselves to be
Many times I purposefully, not dress down, but like I'm more like casual about how I dress, because it helps me mentally. Like I hang out with college girls a lot, and I love the aspect about them that they come in their ripped jeans and their beach hair, and it's just like they have I don't know if it's the generation or style.
Yeah.
I love it because it feels so real. And